I'm a New York City public school teacher, special education, 17 years. UFT, that's my union, chapter leader for the last 10 years. Member of the movement and rank and file educators. We're the social justice caucus within the United Federation of Teachers. And I want to tell a little story about how I got involved in politics, because I think being a teacher and education is probably one of the most politicizing experiences of my life. I'm also a parent of a public school student, a ninth grader at the Professional Performing Arts High School in New York City. I teach at the Earth School in the East Village. Adrian is actually student teaching there as well. And as a public school teacher at the Earth School, we get to do some pretty amazing things. We're very green. We have rooftop garden. We take on green initiatives, such as zero single-use plastic bottles. We talk with our kids about using reusable bags, the impacts of diesel, gas on the environment. And so we do all these amazing things, but to be able to teach in that manner, where teachers have the power to shape curriculum, we've actually had to fight back against top-down mandates on policies and curriculum. And when John Liu, I don't know if you all know John Liu, comptroller, was running for mayor in New York City, he was kind of dabbling and going around doing town halls. I was just a teacher. I say just a teacher because I kept my head down and just tried to teach in my classroom, and that was the brunt of it. I pick up my kid after school, we go to the park, the usual stuff. But it was becoming increasingly impossible for me to do my job in the school that I was at previously. I was summarily being pushed out for having a voice, for advocating for my students with special needs. I was finding myself advocating for teachers in my school. So this is talking at a very school level. So one day I decided I'm going to go. I lived in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn. Decided to go to John Liu's town hall in a church similar to this. And I sat in the back, listened to person after person talk about the need for more test prep centers in this 100% poor black and brown community. Needing more test prep centers, needing more space for charter schools, more funding for after-school programs to prepare students for the high-stakes tests that were coming. Because the schools in that area were one by one being targeted for closure because of low test scores. I raised my hand at the end, not sure I was going to speak. I basically stood up and they called on me. And I said, do you think that the elite, the rich, are fighting over space? Do you think that they're having to fight over the kind of curriculum they teach? They don't do high-stakes standardized testing. And as I was talking, people turned and looked at me and they started clapping. And I freaked out because then the camera panned at me. I literally took my kid's hand and I ran out the door, but then I had a moment of reflection. I said, I can't be afraid anymore. I had to swallow that fear pill, right? And I wondered why I was so afraid to speak out. I was afraid for my job, my livelihood. What was I afraid of? Okay, in my own ignorance. And so I made it my business to find other teachers like me, and we organized a caucus. I want to just say really quickly, I'm about to go over time, I'm sorry. Buffalo has 31,000 students. Syracuse, about 20,000 students. Rochester, about 27,000 students. Utica, about 10,000. New York City, 1.1 million students, public school students. Who is making all of the decisions that impact? We think it's Cuomo, we think it's all these elected officials, right? Speaking to the issue and not the person has been kind of a norm of mine. I try to keep a value of mine. So not attacking individuals, but talking about the issue. The issue is, yes, we can talk about this elected official or that elected official. The real problem is the issue. We have organizations, right? We talked about nonprofits earlier, giving, like Students First, Green Orchard, and the formerly, and thank God they're gone, the Families for Excellent Schools, giving millions of dollars to fund campaigns, right? To implement privatization policies in New York State in a really corrupt manner. And then the withholding of billions of dollars of funding from New York State's public schools, while imposing ridiculous accountability measures on the backs of the teachers that are highly unionized and those of our students and families. This is not happening to the elites. This is not. This is meant to cripple us and put us into a place of complete being stuck. We have the IDC, the Democrats and the Republicans. It's time to unveil, it's time to open the doors, expose that, and this is why I am proud and I was really honored to be asked to run for Lieutenant Governor, because I know that I will be able to help preside over the state Senate and expose the corruption. So we're not just talking about the issues now, we're talking also about how to change the structure. Thank you very much.
John.
Yeah, as a public teacher candidate for Lieutenant Governor, would you be willing to travel to the states, some of the states where the teacher rebellion is going on, and identifying that as a candidate?
So FYI, the MORE Caucus is part of a national network of social justice caucuses. We're all kind of dissidents, and I'm already in touch with all of those states. We're on the regular in monthly calls. So I'm very much in the loop. I was actually asked to go this summer to West Virginia I already met the West Virginia teachers who actually started the whole thing, to help them form a new caucus in their own union. Because they had to tell their union leadership to go back to the table, right?
Brian?
As a candidate, how will you be able to convince voters from various backgrounds to support you, given the fact that Kathy Hochul, the current Lieutenant Governor, worked with Andrew Cuomo to create the Women's Equality Party to dominate the women voters' support?
That's a great question. So in my work, I'm most comfortable in grassroots settings. Running for elected office this is my first time in something this big. And I will tell you right now that we already have allies. I don't see myself as running in isolation. I see myself as part of a collective. And you're nodding your head because you understand, right? In doing this work, we're already connected. And we just have to, they already know that we're running in this race, but the real work is on the ground, and that's where I've been my whole life, right? Yeah.
Progressive Stack, Carmen?
What's your position on charter schools and why the public system?
You sure you want to get me started on that? Okay, can you finish the last part of that question?
Why isn't the public system, the public school system reformed?
So, in 2009, at the Democratic National Convention, Bill Gates was their keynote speaker. He said, and I quote, "The Common Core standards will unleash powerful market forces in the service of better teaching and learning." And what he was talking about was not about better teaching and learning in the classroom. He was talking about profit, right? And so you see a big money scheme happening. All the negotiations are happening back behind closed doors, FYI. Eva Moskowitz, who runs Success Academy charter schools in New York City, is probably one of the biggest in our state in terms of charter school creation, and KIP, as well as Uncommon schools. They are privately run schools that use our tax dollars. They get free space in public school buildings. They take it over. The teachers are not unionized. They have zero protections. It's a constant windmill of teachers in and out. They churn them out like crazy, right? They burn them out so badly. I've met with some of these teachers. Then the kind of education that the kids are getting in the schools is something like from the end of the 19th century, early 20th century, right? It's militarized. If you see anything like crazy, lock and step they literally have crazy rallies about beating the test scores. It's test-driven education. It's about valuing compliance over collaboration, right? Because they don't want a generation of free thinkers. That's the last thing they want. They want kids to comply. And who are the students that are disproportionately impacted in our poor Black and brown neighborhoods? So we're talking for-profit, we're talking controlling the minds of the next generation so that they don't know how to think freely and for themselves. And it's actually a global initiative. It's not just New York.
Well, first off, thanks for running for Lieutenant Governor. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Secondly, I went to public school and I traveled to Port Vivian, you know, and I can remember when I was in school, the military was actively and aggressively recruiting students. How do you plan to combat this?
Listen, we can enforce policy or we can create policy from top down, but I think number one, and I know high school teachers and students who are actively organizing to push them out when they show up. Because they're not allowed to go into school buildings, but most administrators don't even know that. And so they come in and they start recruiting. But if you have educated students and teachers, that will never happen. And sometimes they stand outside on the sidewalk and they get scared off. But we have to be able to know what our rights are. We have to know what's what. And part of that is actively building and organizing at the base.
Can I hear a motion to extend time to close the stack?
Motion to second.
Any objections? All right, Kathy?
How do you look up with the broad student movement that's emerged around nonviolence association? I've paid a lot of attention to the different signs all over the country, particularly in New York State. So there's a lot of like counselors not cops.
Yes.
Proposals that were made by the Senate, arming teachers with resources, not guns. Demilitarized the police with
Right.
resources. And there's a pretty good conscience among the students that they want to deal with the elections but that there's not, the politicians don't respond to their demands. And so how do you, I think it's an important.
This is a big, right.
Make this, though, there's still motions up on Secretary of State as well.
Yeah, so we are in a really complicated situation. Those movements have happened particularly in red states, right? The teachers' strikes have been all right to work red states. We are in a blue state where things seem or appear to be more progressive. So it makes our work as Greens all that more difficult because we have to now unveil another layer of corruption within the Democratic Party, right? Which makes, so they have these organizations like, I can't even think of the names right now, I apologize, but these non-for-profits that help fund a lot of these student organized groups, and they funnel their energy into a direction and kind of control and co-opt, right? And this is a big problem in New York State. I'm fully aware of that, as well as the parents who've been trying to organize. I think we know some of the groups that really take, especially our parents of color, and they actually fund to help them become full-time organizers, but then their hands are tied when they want to speak up about the real issues. Yes, I'm seeing a lot of heads nod. You all understand. So our work then becomes, how do we talk to those students? We can't come up with some kind of PR campaign. That's what they do. We actually have to build those relationships, which is why I did the organizer training earlier.
Paul?
Okay, one of the biggest issues of people that don't vote is cannabis, or marijuana, pot, and how we just spoke at the pot break.
Yes.
Are you willing to take that issue head on and try to get people who don't vote to vote just based on that?
Yes, absolutely. Do you need more explanation? I mean, yes.
Green Party platform on that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. I fully support. Yeah.